Leslie did say you did pretty good, but it was just pretty good. It wasn't awesome great on the He is risen part. So we're gonna improve because this is Easter, right? So I'm gonna say Christ is risen, and your response is He is risen indeed. We're gonna do it 3 times. Are you ready? Now this is can't be good. It's gotta be great. All right. Christ is risen.
He is risen indeed.
Christ is risen. Christ is risen! Indeed! Oh, wow. That was better. You may be seated. Wow. I want to say hello to all those over there in the sanctuary. I'm sorry I did not get over there to welcome you before you came in. I'm going to be out in the parking lot after worship, so if you're a guest over in the sanctuary, I would love to meet you. I'll be between the ark and the sanctuary, but welcome. I know the music over there has been awesome. You got a great thing happening over there and as well in here. Man, what a day. First thing I want everyone to know, that last weekend, over 600 people showed up at this place at 12:15, and they made this huge circle around this building, around the other building that you over there in the sanctuary in, and they prayed over these facilities and for every church in the area over what God was going to do on this weekend. Some of you are in this photo. Thank you. The past 48 hours, you know something else. Over in the sanctuary, every place where you're sitting, and in this ark, every chair, someone sat in that chair and they prayed, and they were thinking about you. They don't know you, they don't know your name, but God does. And they prayed over every single place in this ark and in this sanctuary where someone is sitting, that whatever you're going through in your life, that you would know there's someone who cares and that God loves you. And God wants to be involved in your life. So you've been prayed over before you ever arrived here this morning. I would like to introduce myself because there's a lot of folks here we've not met. My name is Rick Owen. I'm one of the many people that get to work on staff here at this wonderful, fantastic church that so many people work at. I'm just one of many. I will tell you that I am a husband. This is my wife of 34 years, my better part, you see on the screen. You may have met her when you walked in here this morning. She was out there in guest services. I am a father. These are our 3 sons. I will tell you, they are handsome and they are eligible. They are highly educated and they are eligible. They are successful, eligible, godly men. Did I tell you they were eligible? Now, there's a reason I want to make sure you know they're eligible, because somebody might hear, you might be an answer to prayer this morning. You see, before our boys were ever born, Dallas and I prayed over our children and their future. When they were in her womb, I would place my hands upon her belly and I would pray for the future of my children, for their education, for where they would go to school, and for their job, for their career, and for the mates they would meet. And I've been praying for a long time. And so finally my prayers have changed. I really don't care about their happiness anymore. I just want them to get married and give me some grandchildren. It's all about me, all right? Do I have any grandparents in the house? Any grandparents know what I'm talking about? You know, so to heck with them, just get married and give me some grandkids, okay? So they're eligible. I'm just making sure. So I'm a father. If you were to check me out on Facebook, if you've not, I would love to be your Facebook friend. I would love to do that. Soon to be out there on Twitter doing some things. You will discover that man, God has allowed me to be here, senior pastor of this church for 26 years. That is a long time. 26 years. I just can't believe it. That you're going to learn that I love to read. If you check me out there, you're going to learn that I love sports of all kinds. I love to play sports. I love to watch sports. I'm a CrossFit addict. I'm telling you, I'm a junkie. I just can't get enough of it. I love mentoring young adults. It's one of my passions. One of the greatest things in my life right now is that Dallas and I, every other Thursday night, we have a bunch of young people come into our house, and we just sit around and talk about life, and some of them are here in this worship service. And Dallas and I, at a time in our life, we just love pouring our lives into young adults who are going to take this thing over. because one day I'm not going to be here, and man, we just feel like, man, I love doing that. And you also notice, if you check me out on Facebook or out there on all this internet social media stuff, that I consider myself an activist for people that are turned off religion. And folks that are sick of denominationalisms and traditionalisms and have had bad church experiences, because I know a lot of you have. But the most significant, most important way I would try to define myself, to introduce myself, to tell you that I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. And notice I didn't use the word Christian, because I know that there are a lot of people who call themselves Christians that have given God a bad name and have given the church a bad name, and that's why some of you are here this morning reluctantly. Some of you here are cautiously. Some of you here skeptically. Some of you here this morning only so you can go to lunch right after this service. Because they said, if you know church, no lunch. I know. And with good reason, because I know some of you have had. So I define my life by being a follower of Jesus Christ. Now, let me share with you what that means. That means that I'm trying my best. I'm trying my hardest, and it's the hardest thing I've ever done to pattern my life after a man named Jesus. And it's hard. I'm going to tell you the truth. It's hard. I mean, this guy Jesus talks about loving your neighbor like you love yourself, and then he says to love your enemies. Wow. Man, I got some folks that, have you ever noticed there are just some people that are really hard to love? I mean, they're just dadgummit. I mean, if you make it a little easier on me, would you? I mean, but they're scoundrels. And then he had the audacity to tell us to forgive people. I mean, I try, but how do you forgive people you don't even like? Anybody have somebody you don't like? I mean, I got to tell you, I don't like all people. I want to, but I just don't. But yes, you got to forgive me. I mean, and the Jesus guy, the story we read about, he goes on the cross, right? And these people, they're hurling insults at him and they're mocking him and they stab him with all this stuff and everything. And what does he say? He says, Father, forgive them. I'm going, man, that's hard. And then he says, this Jesus guy that I'm patterning my life after, he says about being a peacemaker. How do you be a person of peace in a world where there's 47 wars going on all over? How do you do that? And how do you be a person of peace in a family where everything's dysfunctional, people get mad and conflict and all this crap? And how do you be a peacemaker in a workplace where everything is just dog eat dog and the survival of the fittest? I mean, so it's hard, but that's what I mean. I'm trying to pattern my life after this man. Now the question is why? Why? Why am I a follower of Jesus? Well, all around the world today, there are hundreds of thousands of people that are assembling in places like this, and there's hundreds here in these two worship spaces this morning, sanctuary and art, because some of us believe that God raised a dead man back to life. Now, I know that some of you here this morning are skeptics, doubt about the reality whether or not this really happened or not, and I get that. I too have been bitten by the spirit of this age, the spirit of cynicism. I too have my own doubts. I'm a pastor, and I tell you, I have doubts in understanding all this stuff, how it happened. Our family was in Washington, D.C. last summer for a vacation. We were there to go to Washington to see a baseball game and to Boston to see a baseball game and kind of hang out. But we took some time to go to the Washington Mall area. And we were between the Lincoln and between the Capitol. And we're walking there, and I noticed there were remnants there of a rally that had been held there. It was called the Reason Rally, where 30,000 people had assembled on the Washington Mall, put off by the American Atheist Association. And this is why they were there. This was their phrase. We want everyone to quit allowing religion to influence our culture because religion is not rational. God is not limited to our reason. God is bigger than our rational minds can understand. If you and I could comprehend and understand how a dead man could come back to life, you would be God yourself. It is not a rational thought. Well, some folks say, this Jesus guy, he really didn't come back from the dead. It's a metaphor. It's a wonderful story to try to teach people a spiritual truth. And that's why I don't buy in. Well, that's all well and good, but the Bible does not allow us to buy into that. See, the Bible is going to tell us something. If you're a guest here over in the sanctuary or here in the ark, we have something our worship guy calls sermon notes. I want to do a little teaching here. Just going to spend about 20 minutes here, 25 minutes of teaching. And the first thing I want you to learn is what this Bible says. It says the resurrection of Jesus Christ has, number one, has historical credibility. Historical credibility. Now, I'm going to be in the first book of Corinthians. If you have a Bible, they're going to walk the aisles here, the ark, and the sanctuary. There's Bibles right in front of you in the pew. You can take them out if you want one. Open up your smartphone, your iPad, whatever you want. And if you open up this Bible thing, you go to the middle if you're not familiar with it. And if you need a Bible, take it home with you, okay? If you don't have a Bible, grab one. They'll give you, just take it home. Or give it to your neighbor. Give it to someone who needs it. But if you open up this thing, you're going to find the Psalms probably, or Isaiah, is where I turn, and then go to your right. Just keep going to your right. Eventually, you'll get something called the New Testament. It says Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Then it says Acts. Then you'll see something called Romans. And finally, you'll find a book called 1 Corinthians. That's where I am, 1 Corinthians. It's chapter 15. Now, this book right here, you need to know, the 1 Corinthians, the very first writing after Jesus was resurrected, the very first writings. Only 24 years after Jesus was back from the dead, this is written. And it's going to show historical credibility. Let me show you. Pick up verse 12. It says, if it is preached the Christ has been raised from the dead, how can some of you say there is no resurrection of the dead? If there is no resurrection of the dead, then not even Christ has been raised. And if Christ has not been raised, our preaching is useless, and so is your faith. More than that, we are then found to be false witnesses about God, for we have testified about God that He raised Christ from the dead. In other words, that if Jesus literally did not come back from the dead, we all are wasting our time here this morning. We should be at home having an extra cup of coffee or finishing brunch and getting out to go play golf because this thing we're doing is worthless. It has no value unless it really happened. Not only that, it would be immoral. It said here, we would be false witnesses. It would be immoral to say that Jesus came from the dead if He really hadn't. And here's why. People have died because of this. People have laid down their life, allowed themselves to be killed for the faith because they said, I believe it's true. It would be immoral to send somebody in harm's way to die for something that is not true, that is a lie. That's what they're saying. We're false witnesses. Now go back up to verse 3. This is the part, man, just grabs me. Historical credibility. Look at verse 3. For what I received, I passed on to you as of first importance. This is Paul. That Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures, that He was buried, that He was raised on the third day according to the Scriptures, and then, look what comes, He appeared to Peter, and then to the 12. Here comes the big one. After that, He appeared to more than 500 of the brothers at the same time. Look at this, most of whom are still living while I write this. Then He appeared to James, then to all of the apostles. Now, let's put this in perspective. He wrote this some 24 years after the resurrection, and there are many people that are still alive that can witness to it. Somebody tell me who this is on the screen right here. Show this picture. Who is this? Amazing. There were a lot of young adults this past week I was visiting with, and I said, who is this? They didn't know. I said, you don't know who John Belushi is? They said, no. I said, you gotta be kidding me. You never heard of Animal House or the Blues Brothers? They said, duh. How many people remember John Belushi? 31 years ago he died. You're getting old. If you raise your hand, you're old, okay? 31 years ago he died. Let's see this next picture. Who's this guy? John Lennon. I remember where I was and what was going on when he died. Man, it hit me in the heart. My wife and I getting ready to celebrate our very first Christmas together. I couldn't be John Lennon. I mean, he walked on water as far as I was concerned, man. John Lennon. I remember. Look at this next picture. Remember this? Who's it? Hey, listen, I think I'm safe in saying that Elvis has left the building, but Jesus is in the house. Because he has risen, right? But I remember Elvis, right? I remember when he died. Hey, how about this next one? Remember this one? 45 years since Martin Luther King died. 45, but I remember my dad was taking me to a baseball game. About to go into the 7th grade, it's in the summer, and it comes on the radio. My dad pulls over the car and stops because he was overwhelmed with emotion about this man of peace being killed by violence. Look at this next one. Who is it? Can you believe this year it's been 50 years? This is the 50th year. But I remember, I was in the 2nd grade. I'm over in Palmer, just right over here, Palmer Elementary. I'm on the playground. I'm eating a popsicle. The principal comes over with the announcement to, hey man, I got some sad news, and blah, there it comes. Now, here's the point. From John Belushi to John F. Kennedy. If somebody had written a book that said that they had been risen from the dead, all of us who will remember would go, nope, it didn't happen. Because I was there when he died, I remember what happened, and I've not seen any evidence that he is alive. Isn't that right? There were living witnesses, over 500, when God raised Jesus from the dead. And nobody was there to say it didn't happen. They all said, we were there, we saw it, it happened. There is historical credibility. There are witnesses that God raised him from the dead. And not only that, not just historical, but there's personal credibility. Personal credibility. I love this next part, down in verse 7. He said, he appeared to James, he appeared to all the apostles. Then in verse 8 he says, and last of all, Jesus Christ appeared to me. Personal credibility. Now this happens differently for everybody. In my experience, may not have been your experience, or it may not be your experience if this has not happened to you yet. But here's my experience. I'm 16 years of age. I've just finished my sophomore year, got my driver's license. I'm a pretty good kid, but I do have some issues. I will tell you, I kind of had a little bit of attitude at times. In the 8th grade year, some of you who call St. Matthew home, you know, I sat on that kid's head, Cecil's head. I sat and I beat him in with a rock. I was sick and tired of him bullying me and pestering me and the stuff, and I just let him have it. It was not pretty. I'm not proud. It was not pleasant, but I had a little bit of attitude about myself. That attitude was compounded by an 8th grade football coach who told me that I would never amount to anything. We moved in. I joined the team. He acted like I shouldn't even be there. To this day, I could tell you his name. I can tell you what he said. And I had this little attitude about it, kind of infected my being and kind of colored my spirit about life and people. My parents are taking me to church weekend after weekend after weekend after weekend. But I'm just going. You know, I mean, I really don't buy into all this stuff a whole lot. I'm not real excited about it. I mean, church was boring. The preaching was boring. I only went because of girls and a friend or two, right? And then not only that, in that same sophomore year, I find some pot in my desk. I take it out, turn it into the teacher. Not only does the pot go down to the principal's office, but myself and an officer and the coach, and they accuse me of being like, no, it wasn't me. What I learned later is that my dad, our house was under surveillance because our father, and I see a couple of my sisters here, our father was helping people in drug rehab, and they would come to our house, all these hippies, you remember the day, the hippies, and they thought my dad was dealing when he was helping, so they said, yeah, you're one of them, aren't you? I said, no. So I had this attitude. And so our church has this lay witness mission that comes to the church. A lay witness mission is when people from other churches all come to one church, lay people, just like you sitting in these chairs, they go to on the pews, go to other churches, and you share your faith. You see what God is doing. And I went because my friends were there and there were girls. And so on this Friday night, they have an adult thing and a youth thing. And at the night of the youth thing, I met this girl on Friday night, and she was a really awesome kisser. I'm just telling the truth, okay? And that's the reason I came back on Saturday to see if it was live or Memorex, if it was real, if it was. So I go back, and on Saturday night, I am there not seeking God. I am there seeking this kiss. And so I find myself, and I see my sister over here because she was in the room with me. I see my sister Karen. She was in the room with me and had this big circle of people right here, and there's this chair right in the middle of the room. And I'm not there to go sit in that chair. I am there waiting for it to be over. And all of a sudden, I find myself sitting in this chair. And that's when it happened. I'm not going to tell you I saw with my eyes the resurrected Jesus, and I'm not going to tell you it was an audible voice that you could hear, but I'll tell you very clearly, God said to me, Rick, I have created you and I have called you to represent me. And I have a future and a plan for your life if you will just follow me. Now that was a very impactful, powerful moment for me. And I was kind of confused by it. In the first 2 or 3 years, I and I threw my life into it, and I'm involved in life of things, and then all of a sudden, I found myself questioning, and I started running. Anybody here, I wonder, had a God experience years ago, and it was a powerful moment, but then some other things in your life happened, and you found yourself running away from God. And I ran away, and it wasn't until my early 30s that it really got me back in, but that was a powerful, life-changing experience for me. And over time, I began to learn what it meant. In your notes, that when you encounter the resurrected Jesus Christ, he gives you a new life purpose. When it gets personal, and you have personal credibility, and you have such an encounter, God gives you a new life purpose. Let me show you. Look right here. Now, I can really relate to this part. Look at verse 8. And last of all, Paul says, he appeared to me as the one abnormally born. You ever felt like you were abnormally born? Are you sitting next to someone, you go, man, you're abnormally born. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, not me. And look what he says next of all. He says, I am the least of the apostles. Man, I don't deserve for God to talk to me. Hey, I persecuted the church. Now what's Paul saying? He said, man, I don't feel worthy of this. Anybody here besides me, when you look at your past, you feel unworthy of God speaking to you and doing something great in you? Am I the only one? See, here's the deal. Every one of us in this room, in these two worship spaces, in our brain, we have something called the very first computer. We have a hard drive. And in this brain, in our hard drive, all these digital recordings of all of our past life experiences, all of our mess-ups, all of our screw-ups, all the stupid things that we've done in our life, all the things that people said to us, all the things that people said about us. And because of our human nature, you and I replay those images over and over and over again. We listen, we replay, we rewind, we replay, we revisit. And whatever you listen to constantly, eventually you will become. Whatever you focus on will eventually become your life reality. And so many of you are allowing yourself to focus on all the junk in your life, and you're living continually in that junk. The Apostle Paul teaches us that anyone who believes in Jesus becomes a new creation. The old has gone and the new has come. Here's what that means. you are no longer the summation of all your mess-ups. Who you are today is not an accumulation of all the junky, stupid things that you've done. That your life today is not defined by what other people have said about you. Your life is not defined about what you believe about you. That in Jesus Christ, He is recreating you to be the new person for the new purpose for which He gave you life in the beginning, in that relationship with Jesus. And not only that, after He gives you new life purpose in your notes, He gives you a new life motivation. This is what I hear all the time. I hear from people, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do this, I can't stay married, I can't overcome this, I can't forgive, I can't raise my kids, I can't make my kids behave, I can't get a job, I can't get out of debt, I can't overcome that addiction, I can't get healthy, I can't diet, I can't lose the weight, I can't exercise, I can't. That word is not allowed in my household. It is a 4-letter vulgar cuss word that has no place in the life of a Christian, a follower of Jesus. Because the Apostle Paul teaches us, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I will through Christ. It gives you motivation to push through because I can. Now, this is what happened to a lot of people. I think there are two things that somehow keep some of you from buying into that I can, regardless of what you know about Jesus. And here's the first one. The first one is fear. It amazes me the number of people who live in fear their whole life. They're afraid to risk. They're afraid to take a chance. They're afraid to fail. They're afraid to give it their all. They're afraid to fall flat on their face. I love what it says that the angels spoke from their mouths when the women showed up at the tomb in the Gospel of Matthew and Mark. The very first words when the women, they said, don't be afraid. He is not here. He is risen. Don't be afraid. I love the story of Joshua in the Old Testament. In the story of Joshua, Moses is dying, and Joshua is going to get the job of taking them out of the wilderness, crossing over into the promised land. Go back and read this on your own after a while. It's a great, wonderful, fantastic story. Israel's been wandering around in the wilderness, just wilderness, and they're ready to get to the promised land. Can I tell you something? If you're ever going to reach the promised land for your life, you're going to have to go through the wilderness. Every marriage, every career, every individual, there's a wilderness. There will be armies, there will be pitfalls, there will be opposition. And that's why Joshua was afraid. Because he knew to take over the leadership, there was going to be armies and fortified cities. And here is what God says to Joshua in the first chapter. He says, Joshua, do not be afraid. He said, do not be discouraged. You just keep on stepping, because wherever you step your foot, I will give it to you before you get there. So what's the message? You got to step back into the marriage. You got to step back into school. You got to step back into counseling. You got to step back into your children's lives. You got to step. Because wherever you step in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, God's going to give it to you. But you got to keep stepping. Too many people, they just stop. They're frozen in fear. And when you're frozen in fear, all of a sudden you start doing the second thing is you become satisfied. Satisfaction. I'm afraid, I tried, I can't do it, I tried. And so we just begin to accept, and we kind of way down here. And that's when you'll start saying, I can't do it, 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 I can't do it. I'll just say, our marriage will never get any better. Our home's never going to get any better. My life's never going to be better. Woe is me. This is the way it's always going to be. And that's the way it always will be. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. The disciples didn't think they could. Jesus said, I'm going to go to the cross, I'm going to die. And they said, oh, no, you can't go. We can't do it without you. He said, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you will. In fact, even greater things than these you will do. And he says, I'm going to give you a new life power. In fact, in your notes where it says number 2, A-B, new life, write letter C and put new life power. He gives you new life purpose. He gives you new life motivation. Then letter C, new life power. Now, somebody needs to write this down, okay, after this. Somebody needs to write this down. Here it is. Faith's persistence, a powerful faith, persistently will overcome fear's resistance. Let me repeat that. Faith's persistence with power will overcome fear's resistance. Let me put it this way. Years ago, my dad came home from the Navy. He saw the little girl who now had blossomed into a beautiful woman and decided she is my woman for me. I want to marry her. And if over you over there in the sanctuary, my mom and dad in the choir, watch my mom blush while I tell this story, you'll know who it is, okay? And my dad smiled like a Cheshire cat because he got her, okay? So my dad decided that this is the woman for him. The only problem was this was his dad's best friend's little girl. And he had to go ask for permission before they could get married. My grandfather, who saw my mother having all this intelligence, that she was going to go to school, get an education, get a degree, was afraid and did not want to say yes to this this Navy guy. And so my grandfather, when he hears that my dad's coming over to ask him to marry this young, beautiful woman, he gets his .22 and he goes squirrel hunting to disappear in the country. My father shows up and he asks, well, where's Jake? And they said, well, he's not here. Mather, he knew you were coming. He's left. Where'd he go? Well, he just left. And so my dad hunted him down, found him out in the countryside. Hey, Jake, can I talk to you? He kept on walking. Hey, Jake, can I talk to you? He just kept on walking. Finally, my dad caught up with him. He said, Jake, man, I know why you're here. Man, can I have your daughter's hand in marriage? Nope, I don't want to talk about it. He just kept on. What my dad had to keep on asking and keep on asking. My grandfather my grandfather's crying. He's feeling the angst of his little girl, this guy. And so finally, my dad, out of desperation, just took the .22 out of my grandfather's hand. He took it at his side, and there was a squirrel there, and it was probably only 50, 60 yards. But my dad tells the story, it's about 10 miles, okay? And so my dad pulls the trigger, and the squirrel falls down right out of the tree. And so my grandfather and my dad, they walk up to look at the squirrel, hit him right between the eyes. My grandfather said, she's yours. This summer, they'll be married 60 years. Faith's persistence overcomes fear's resistance. Are you listening? The Apostle Paul puts it this way, that the same power that God used to raise Jesus from the dead is in you. Think about that. You know what that means? In this room, there is enough power to change the world 10 times over and then some. In this room. And I want you to know something, that you were not invited here this morning by someone. just so you can hear about Jesus so you can get to heaven. It's more than that. You were invited here this morning so you can come to understand that if you believe in Jesus Christ, that He has given you a power, a resurrection power in your life. And when you take that power and you take it back into your marriage, the marriage can make it. When you take that marriage back to where you work, your business that you own, it can make it. God is not here just through Jesus to save people. He's here to save businesses. He's here to save schools. Go back into your school. Go back into your town. God wants to save the world through people who have the power of God in their lives. So here is the invitation to everyone, both these places. Here's the invitation this morning, very simply. The invitation is to activate your faith. You're here this morning. You may not believe very much, but if you believe just a little bit, activate it. You know what that means? That means a step. Take a little step on that you believe what it says in this book is true. Just take a step. That's action. See, Jesus is in the house. And He's saying the same thing to you and me that He said to the disciples years ago. Come follow me. Hey, just come follow me. Come follow me. I'll show you how to love. Come follow me. I'll show you how to forgive. Just follow me. Follow me. I'll show you how to be a peaceful. I'll show you how to stay married. Come follow me. I'll show you how to get out of debt. Come follow me. I'll show you how to be a person of peace. Come follow me. Just follow me, but you got to follow me. And it's going to be hard, but if you'll follow me, you'll experience life like you've never experienced before. But you got to make a decision. In your notes, you got 3 choices. The first one is to run away. That's the first choice. And if you want to do that, you can. Run away. And watch everybody else, but never really know the full life that you can have. The second choice is to be a spectator or to spectate. And a lot of people do that. A lot of people just want to come to a church and sit around and they kind of watch everybody else. You watch everybody else live. You watch everybody else overcome. You watch everybody else, but you're not experiencing it yourself. But the third choice is to commit. Just to say, you know what, I'm going to try. I'm going to make a commitment to follow this guy, Jesus. I'm going to try to pattern my life after Him, and I'm going to see what happens. Now, if you're a guest here this morning, I'm going to ask you to do something. If you come from another church and you've not been to that church in a while, or you live in another city and you've not been to church forever, I'm going to ask you to go back to that church. I'm going to ask you to go back to it. Your church, that church needs you. This last weekend, we had a huge Easter egg hunt. I wish I had time to tell you about that. It was awesome. It was awesome. There were people who came here not to hunt Easter eggs. They came, they were hungry. They just needed something to eat, and they got fed, didn't they, Philip? They got fed. And they said, hey, do I have to pay anything? No, just take it. Just go eat it. Just take it. But there was somebody who came, they said, man, Pastor, this is kind of cool. And I said, man, you need to go back to your home church. I said, no, I don't want to go back to my church. You don't understand, Pastor. Back at my church, there's a lot of stuff, but he didn't use the word stuff, if you know what I'm talking about. So there's a lot of stuff going on in my church. And I said, can I tell you the truth? There's a lot of stuff going on in every church. Can I tell you the truth? Some of the meanest people I know are in churches. Some of those unchristian people I know are in churches. I'm just telling you, that's just a fact. Okay, can I just tell you the truth here? If you choose to come here, you're going to get the truth. That's just the truth. Here's what going to church is like. It's kind of like going to Noah's Ark. And the deeper you get into the ark, the more stuff you find. You know what I'm talking about? Why? Because people are there. Now, here's the alternative. Yeah, y'all get ready over there. Thank you, man. And get over there, Mike. Y'all get ready, too. Here's the alternative. The alternative is not to get in the ark and just drown. Because, see, in the ark, there may be a lot of stuff. But there is salvation in Jesus Christ. And we need folks to help build bigger arks so more people can hear the good. So go back. But if you don't have a church home, come back here next weekend. We have 5 worship services. 1 on Saturday night, 4 on Sunday morning. There's 2 going on right now at the same time. And here in the sanctuary, it's traditional. And next weekend, we're going to begin a new series on the spirited life, on how to activate that power that's in you so you can live like God intended you to live. We would love for you to come back and learn with us how to do that. Now, as you leave here this morning, if you see somebody with purple cord on, they are there to pray for you. Sanctuary and art, outside both spaces. If you need prayer, just go up to somebody and say, man, I need some prayer. I'd like to pray over you. But they will do that, okay? If you want Dallas and I to pray for you, give them a little note. They'll give it to us. We will pray over you. But if you want to be baptized in the future, here's what you can do. You can take out your little smartphone, because in May, we're going to set aside a time for baptisms in this place. Believers, you want to reactivate your faith. You can get out your phone and you can text 99000 Life Water. 99000 Life Water, and someone will get back with you and let you know in May, this special week. Last weekend we had 12 adults come forward and were baptized, and another one reaffirmed their faith. And if you need to do that, let us hear from you. All right. I want to pray for you. We're going to sing a song. We're going to get out of here. God, you are good. You are great. You are kind. You are love. You are generous. You are life, because Jesus is risen from the dead. Unleash your Holy Spirit power among your people and give them life. And all God's people said, amen. Let us stand and sing together.